Hi, my name is Lindsay, and I'm an occupational therapy assistant at Metro Therapy Special Children's Clinic in Fridley, Minnesota. And today I will be talking to you about co-regulation. In order to know what co-regulation is, we need to first know what self-regulation is. And self-regulation is the ability to adjust and control your energy, emotions, behaviors, and attention. It includes your ability to maintain alertness and arousal level appropriate for a given situation, which is key here, for the given situation. Self-regulation does not necessarily mean that we are just sitting still quietly. Our ability to self-regulate begins to develop in infancy, and it is built on a foundation of co-regulation. So co-regulation is how we adapt ourselves in order to interact with our child or our client to maintain a regulated state between the two of us, supporting another person to regulate their arousal, attention, feelings, and behaviors. And we engage in co-regulation from infancy with our caregivers. So that's kind of the basis for co-regulation, is if we think all the way back to infancy and in the womb. It is so important because it enables us to facilitate experience sharing, emotion sharing, and to promote a shared enjoyment. We need to experience reliable, comforting presence to learn regulating emotions and impulses from very early on. So we need a model from a caregiver or a parent or a teacher or a therapist in order to learn to manage your emotions and then develop long-term control. In order to help a child co-regulate, we first need to be regulated. That might start with a deep breath in a very stressful situation. Maybe a child just threw a ball at a vase and it shattered everywhere, and the first thing you want to do is yell at your child. But that is the complete opposite of what they need. Instead, they need us to help them calm down because they were probably also scared by what just happened and they didn't mean to do what they did. And if we were to yell at them, we would only be adding fuel to the fire. And in the long run, we're not teaching them good emotional regulation skills and how to regulate in the midst of difficult situations. So we might take that deep breath first, and maybe you'll say something like, I can handle this, I can do this, I'm strong. And once you have that self-regulation as the caregiver or the therapist or the teacher or the parent, then you can go in and help the child. So you might give them sensory supports, you might change the environment, you might remove them from the situation that's going on. So for the example of the broken glass, we might take them out of that completely, take them out of that room, make sure they're physically safe, and make sure that they know that they're emotionally safe. Then you might go on to mirroring what the child is feeling and accept what they're feeling. So you might say, oh, that was probably really scary, So what we might do is say, oh, that's really scary that vase just broke, and I know you didn't mean to do that, and it was an accident, and we're gonna clean it up together, and we're gonna get through this, and everyone is safe, and we're going to be okay. So that they know that their feelings are validated, that they indeed were scared, what happened was not an ideal situation, but that you're gonna be able to work through it together. So some very specific steps kind of in order of how you might help a child co-regulate would first be the taking a step back and lowering the demand of what's going on in the environment. So it might be a really busy environment and you have to just take them totally to a new place with less sensory stimulation, less overload and stuff like that. Then you're going to work on breathing. You can just breathe alongside the child. You don't have to tell them, hey, you need to start breathing slowly, because that almost always has the opposite effect. So we have to find ways to be kind of sneaky about it, including just breathing alongside them from behind, audibly as well, so that the child can hear it. And then this is a really tough one, especially in the difficult situations, is using a very slow, low, and intentional voice. So in the broken glass scenario, again, if you start yelling, if your tone is really high and you're talking really fast and you're so mad, then that child is going to feel really dysregulated and amped up, and you as the adult are probably feeling the same way. So you're just feeding dysregulation and dysregulation. So we want to kind of think how can we give our child an audible hug and use a slow speaking voice and a low tone? And then body language is super important. So in order to be really open, we want to maybe have palms up, almost like you're ready for a hug, but it's really open and inviting. You don't want to be closed off and crossed like this, or like in your phone over here while your child's having a really tough time. You want to really be open and inviting. You want to work on grounding, being in the here and now. So there's a lot of different grounding techniques, but one that I brought here today is name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel or touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 good thing about yourself. And the order doesn't matter, but it's just kind of an idea of like what's here, what's now, how can we be present now? And lastly, we want to do more and say less. So it's easy to want to talk through a situation really, really thoroughly with a kid, but usually when they are dysregulated, they can't take anything in. So we just want to be there for them. Maybe we're just walking alongside the child. Maybe we're just giving them a hug. Maybe we're just breathing, but less is more in these situations. Maybe you're just coloring by the child. Maybe you're playing a game with them. Lots of different ways to just do more and say less, because the talking in these situations usually does not help very much. Lastly, we want to give the child opportunities for practice both in these dysregulated states and outside of them. So when we're working in the heat of the moment, that's great, but then we also want to talk outside of those moments too, and maybe revisit the situation an hour later when they finally calmed down on a physiological level, and they can actually hear and learn again. So we want to know that what works for the child is going to vary a lot from person to person, and it's up to you to adapt yourself and know what works for the child and for you, so that we can make long-term progress. So adapt and notice what works for you and for your child. And I hope some of these tips have been really helpful in learning a little bit more about co-regulation. If your child has any difficulties with difficult situations and managing their emotions, and if you would like any tips or tricks on how to co-regulate, please come to Metro Therapy. Our number is 763-450-9400.